No, I'm just joking. I'm not playing Won't Back Down. I've got a very special intro lined up, but I'm not going to do it right away. I'm going to introduce the show, then I'm going to play the new intro. So, good evening, Resistors. Today is April 26, 2011, and you are tuned in to the WideShut Webcast on Resistance Radio. As always, I'm your host, Keelan Balderson, and for all my articles and videos and all that good stuff, be sure to check out wideshut.co.uk, and for everything Resistance Radio, the web address is resistradio.com. Just going to check the chat. Can you hear me okay? Can people let me know if they can hear me? Still waiting for the chat to fill up. That's kind of the benefit of playing a song to start with, because then people can come in while the song's on, but I'm going to mix it up a bit today. Just let me know if you can hear me. And we have that stupid delay as well. Loud and clear. Okay, well, there's lots I want to cover today. I'm back into the swing of things. We're not going to be talking about our feelings today. We're not going to be worrying about the future. Today, we're going to be hardcore resisting, because coming up this Friday, the inbred Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, otherwise known as the British royal family, they're going to be out in full force, reassuring us peasants that we're slaves and we've got to enjoy it. Well, folks, Resistance Radio are going to enjoy the royal wedding. We're going to enjoy waking people up. We're going to enjoy exposing the absurdity of royal worship. And we're going to enjoy letting people know that we are the resistance, and the time for resistance is now. And before we start the show today, I just want to shout out one of our loyal listeners, Ian Meeker, whose birthday is today. I won't say how old he is, in case he doesn't want that sprouted off all over the internet, but happy birthday to you, mate. And also I want to thank warandpeace.ru, that's a Russian website, for translating my Ivory Coast article into Russian. You know, the more people that have access to this information, the better. So thanks to you guys for doing that. But coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking a bit of history about the royals and why any sane, free human being should not be supporting them. And we're going to be getting into several headlines. Obama has signed off on drone attacks on Libya. Just out today, WikiLeaks, Al-Qaeda bomber worked for Britain. Surprise, surprise. Architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth's Richard Gage is coming to the UK. And there's some 7/7 headlines that I want to get into, and much, much more. So keep it locked here on Resistance Radio, because this is where the real information is. This is where the genuine hosts are, the people that really do want to make a difference. If you want to spend your time speculating about triangles in kids' cartoons, then there's plenty of conspiracy porn on YouTube. But if you want to deal with the hardcore issues, what the elite are actually doing right now, and we can prove it, then join the resistance. Join Resistance Radio, because freedom is the only option.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Resistance Radio.
Well, Osama bin Laden is coming out apparently talking climate change and blaming it on the United States.
Listen to me! Television is not the truth! Television is a goddamn amusement park!
You are the resistance.
I'm gonna break the rusty cage of the New World Order and run. Welcome back to the WideShut Webcast. I am your host, Keelan Balderson, and let's get into some real news. I don't know how many of you have seen the riots regarding a Tesco in Bristol. I don't know too much about it. I've seen a couple of the videos on YouTube, and a lot of the comments on there from people that were at that riot, that protest of this Tesco's in Bristol. They were actually awake. They were talking about things like 9/11. They were talking about 9/11 in these contexts, in these comments even. They were talking about the New World Order. The people there that were protesting this Tesco, they know the deal. And I just thought that was an interesting point to make. It seems things are slowly seeping through into other forms of activism. Different people are coming together, and these ideas are spreading. And I want to point out something I found quite ironic. There were all sorts of reports about heavy-handed police at this riot. And I don't know if people remember, but a few months ago there was a headline, I'm not sure what town it was in, but Tesco were offering to build a police station within the store. Sort of a backhanded deal where they offer free government buildings and things, so as long as they get to build their big corporate superstore. And this goes on a lot. In my town, they were offering to build a school, they were going to build a sports place, as long as they let this company, I can't quite remember what it wasn't a Tesco, but as long as they let this company build a store. So the point is, of course the police are going to be aggressive and are going to be protecting this corporate entity, because they're working now with the police. And it looks like there's going to be police stations within Tesco stores in some places. It's the fascist merger between corporation and state. But I don't want to get too much into that because I haven't done the reading behind it. I'm not too certain about what happened. I just saw a couple of YouTube videos, and it seems that the local residents just didn't want another Tesco opening in their town, which would ultimately close down the small mom and pop stores, shops. So you got me speaking American. But there you go. Moving on. For those out there in the UK and Ireland who know that 9/11 was an inside job, you know, I don't see how Bin Laden can make NORAD stand down. Some people say it was lie hop and all this kind of thing, but it was an inside job, folks. And for those that are in the UK and Ireland, Richard Gage is coming to a conference. Let me just paste the link in there into the chat room. So if you can make it to Ireland on Sunday 12th of June, then you can get some real evidence about the September 11th attacks. Richard Gage, of course, of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. He will be there speaking on behalf of the Sovereign Independent. The conference is called the Master Plan. For full details on locations and other speakers, I think Luke Radowski of We Are Change is also going to be there. So please follow the link in the chat, or if you're catching this on a replay on YouTube, go to sovereignindependent.com for all the details. The Sovereign Independent is an Irish-based alternative news website, and they occasionally get funds through donations to do proper newspaper prints that they hand out. They I think last year they confronted Rockefeller when he came for a meeting in Ireland. So be sure to check them out, and be sure, if you get the chance, to go to the Master Plan Conference with Richard Gage and Luke Radowski and lots of other speakers. Of course, the 10-year anniversary of 9/11 is well on its way. The quote-unquote end of fear. And I have no doubt that Resistance Radio will be out in full force this September the 11th. I plan on going to London and seeing what's happening. I'm not too sure what the plans are, but I mean, if you didn't go to the London protest for the cuts, or if you're not going to the royal wedding, I think the 9/11 protest, if you don't go to any protest, that's going to be something you're going to want to attend. Because it could be our last chance to break the mainstream paradigm and wake people up to the proper research into 9/11. Once 10 years have passed, people start to say, well, you know, happened a while ago. Some people will be of an age where they were too young to even remember what happened, at least on the day itself. So if we can't hammer this home by the 10th year, things are going to get a lot more difficult, I think. And if there's enough of us around the world, there's obviously going to be big things happening in New York. I'm sure in London there'll be lots of people, lots of 9/11 truthers from the UK. If there's enough of us, the mainstream media will have to cover it. And then, once they do start covering it, people like Richard Gage, who have the empirical data, can get more TV time and explain what needs to be explained. But they're not going to get that TV time if we don't kick up a fuss and make it happen. 9/11, 7/7, and all the other little dubious terrorist events and provable false flags since 9/11 have allowed the elite to continue their agenda in the Middle East, to decimate the Middle East and restructure it into their New World Order system. But if we can get the average person to understand that everything that's happened since 9/11 comes from a lie, then the establishment are going to have a tough time trying to justify what they've been doing. So go to this protest, go to the conference with Richard Gage if you get the chance. And even if you know you can't make it to London on September the 11th this year, or you can't make it to any of the big meetups or whatever's happening, just do something in your local town. Give out leaflets. If you don't even like being out there with the people, get up at 6 in the morning and post things through people's letterboxes. I did that with swine flu. I just printed off a bunch of flyers, got up early one Sunday in the dark so no one bothered me, and I just put leaflets through people's doors. There's lots of things we can do to spread awareness for these things. And speaking of the corporate expansion of the New World Order, Obama launches deadly drones in Libya. Paste that into the chat. Yeah, that's right. The Western invasion of Libya. Oh, no, wait. Excuse me. Sorry. The kinetic military action in Libya to liberate the people. The spin is so obvious now, folks. They're not kidding anyone. But of course, Obama has now signed off on a remote-controlled Predator drones to attack Gaddafi's forces in Libya. And to me, this just reveals everything. They've shown their cards now, because drones, no matter what they say, The statistics prove that drones are inaccurate killing machines. They kill innocent people all the time. So how can this be about saving innocent people? They can call them accurate all they want, but they're not. Look at Pakistan. Over 900 innocent people in Pakistan were murdered in 2009 because of drone attacks. Because they just drop them anywhere. Because they go, oops, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. And because a lot of the time they just drop them on buildings and don't know who's even there. Women and children die because corporations make weapons and the US decide to use them. Every day people die from drone attacks. Innocent people. And even if it is terrorists, a lot of the terrorists are just there because we're firing at them. Somebody came into your street and started shooting, what would you do? You'd fire back, and then in the twisted world that we have, we'd call you the terrorist. So the idea that Libya is about human rights, this phony left cover story, is completely blown out of the water, because drone attacks mean innocent people die. And it also means more radicals, more extremists in the future. You know, if a foreign country dropped a bomb down your street and it blew up your neighbours or killed your mother, are you going to say, oh, thanks for saving me, guys, I was waiting for you to come in here and help me? No, you're probably going to pick up a weapon, as I said, and then you're going to kill every foreign soldier that you see. Being in Libya might make it worse. This is how blowback starts. This is a large percentage of the reason why the Middle East do hate the West. Because we're always over there meddling in their business, funding their radicals. Because we kill innocent people. We put in puppet dictators. Then kill even more innocent people. When we want to replace that dictator with a new dictator. Covert ops, all of this kind of thing. That's why they hate us. It's not because they hate our freedoms. It's because we're not allowing them to have their freedoms. So Obama, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, how's that for doublespeak? He's now signed off on the deaths of innocent people. Oh, and I forgot. Guess who manufactures some of these drones? Lockheed Martin, the company that got 150 million to help with the UK census. This is a sick comedy. You can't make this stuff up. And if you're doubting that the tentacles of world government aren't fully outstretched in this thing, then just flick on the TV and look at the news about Libya. Everybody is talking about how this is in line with the UN resolution. It's okay because the UN resolution says so. In other words, because the world government has dictated it to be so. And they act like the UN is some, omnipotent great power. Like it's the law of physics that we have to do this because the UN says. Well, who cares what the UN says? If it's immoral, don't do it. But the way that they talk about the UN, they're hiding behind it. It's okay, the UN resolution says this. in line with the UN resolution. The people that control the UN are the Western powers, are the New World Order. It's not really the UN resolution. The UN is just made up of the UK, the US and the EU. It's the bankers' resolution. It's BP's resolution. And to all those warmongering morons out there, well, at least they're honest. But to people like Donald Trump, you know, oh, let's go in there and get that oil. It's going to benefit the country. It's going to benefit the oil corporations. You're not a part of the team. Do you think when they recover the oil, that prices at the pumps are going to go down? Of course they're not. The elite don't belong to the UK or the US. The corporations don't belong to the UK or the US. It's not British Petroleum. Why do you think they call them transnational corporations? Their interests are their own and they're global. They don't have support for England or the US or any particular country. They're working to get rid of nation states altogether. So when people sit there and go, oh, we need the oil. Who's we? You're not getting the oil. But anyway, next I want to hop over to some 7/7 news coming out of the inquest, and all this really is just fizzled out of the mainstream media. The inquest is over, so I guess that's the end of the story. People have just shut the book on it. Hopefully I can keep it alive with the new 7/7 film, 7/7 in question. I hope to get that done by the end of the summer now. It probably won't be ready for the anniversary, but it will be out sometime this year. But the headline I wanted to touch on is expert claims 7/7 verdict will be ignored. And you don't really need an expert to tell you that. I could have told you that anyway. An expert has claimed recommendations put forth by Lady Justice Hallett's 7/7 inquest will be ignored, just weeks after the government says don't criticise MI5. According to Jennifer Cole, head of emergency management at the Royal United Services Institute, recommendations will be difficult to implement due to the lack of ministerial oversight for emergency services. Without a dedicated minister to fight the cause, the recommendations from the coroner's inquest are likely to go the way of those from previous reviews. According to the Rusi report, recommendations following the King's Cross underground fire in 1987 weren't even implemented by 2005. Family members had hoped a list of suggestions could have been considered by the security services. But the government claimed MI5 had already changed the way it operates for the better and deemed some of the proposals were unnecessary. James Eady QC said, "The evidence simply does not give rise to any concern about future deaths and continuing risk." Of course, what would really help prevent future attacks would be for MI6 to stop funding and training Muslim extremists overseas and working alongside the terrorists themselves. So basically, the inquest is over, the intelligence agencies denied any wrongdoing, and they've refused to implement any new measures to prevent terrorist attacks in the future. And experts are saying measures to improve the emergency response in a terrorist attack will also be ignored. That's how much they really care about you. They're all about going overseas to get these quote-unquote terrorists. They're all about invading other countries and stealing their oil and resources and building a strategic wall so they can invade more countries. But they don't actually care if you get killed on home soil. In fact, it'd probably be better for them if more people did get murdered by terrorists in England. because it gives them another pretext to continue the corporate expansion of the New World Order. On Pal Talk, me and Red were discussing how the royal wedding would be a perfect venue for some kind of lie hop or false flag attack. I don't really want to put that energy out there, but there have been reports that because of the invasion of Libya, sort of these left-hand reports alongside the "oh, we must do it," there have been some reports that because of the invasion, it could spark a new threat to the UK. As in, we're attacking them, so Libyans in England or whatever are going to retaliate against us. Now, whether that threat is real or not, they're still saying it, which is laying the groundwork for whatever they may want to do, or it could be coincidental. But it does make sense. Blowback is a possible scenario, and it is understandable. As I say, we invade these countries. Some people are going to be ticked off. But at the same time, we also have to remember that things like the Lockerbie bombing, that wasn't really a Libyan attack. Mr. Britt did a show on that a little while ago, getting into that. From what I can see, Gaddafi basically took the blame to stay in relatively good standing with the Western elite. The shooting of PC Yvonne Fletcher, it wasn't carried out by those within the Libyan embassy, as they keep repeating over and over again. And actually, the report that says it wasn't fired, that, you know, the shot that killed this police officer wasn't fired from the Libyan embassy, that report came from the mainstream news anyway. It came from dispatches in 1994. The shot was most likely fired from a nearby building that just so happened to have rented rooms from MI5. And then there was a dubious link between the Reagan administration and the Libyan terror group who wanted to carry out a false flag in the UK as a pretext for the UK to then go and take out Gaddafi, because this Libyan terror group was an anti-Gaddafi group. It's kind of confusing, but an anti-Gaddafi terror group linked to the Reagan administration wanted to do a false flag so England would take out Gaddafi. And there's all sorts of other dubious things. And I'm digressing, but there is always the possibility of these kinds of attacks. They might be very real, they might be contrived, and a lot of the time there's elements of both helping to mask each other. You know, it's understandable to think that Muslims would want to attack America on 9/11, but at the same time, it's the perfect cover-up so the real people behind the attacks can say, look, it was the crazy Muslims that hate our freedoms. Moving on quickly to the next headline. Bolivia grants the Earth human rights. This is a headline that came out a few days ago now. I covered it a little bit late, but basically the Bolivian government have enshrined the Earth's rights in law. And a lot of the proposals and the points that they make in this legislation, they're fair points. You know, we should not destroy natural habitats and ruin ecosystems and all that kind of thing. But it goes hand in hand with the green agenda and this trumped up bollocks about global warming and man-made CO2. Imagine if the UN and UN member states all decided to agree that they were going to enshrine the Earth's rights in law. Then you could have Al Gore and the Carbon Kings and the eco-fascists saying, you destroyed this ecosystem with your evil CO2, you must face the consequences. So when I hear things like that the earth now has legal rights, I think of the eco-fascists, not well-meaning Bolivians. So just keep your eye on that. But that wraps things up for headlines. Go to wideshut.co.uk to look into the other headlines that I didn't get to cover. There was a story out today about WikiLeaks. They leaked some documents from Guantanamo Bay that show a terrorist was on the payroll of MI6 while he was bombing churches in Pakistan. So that's well worth a read. But today I also wanted to talk about our loving royals and some of the points that I hope to raise this weekend, well, Friday, on the streets of London during the wedding. And I think it's a good idea to sort of take a step back and just remind ourselves who this family really is. We discussed some of this on the round table the other week, but a lot of people love the royals, so it's worth hammering home. I mean, a lot of Americans seem to love the royals. All the American news channels are talking about the royal wedding, which is completely bizarre, because America had a revolution to get rid of the monarchy and the tyranny of Britain. And now they're all loving about the royals. Do these people not learn history in school? Or are the founding fathers now terrorists? You know, a lot of people see the royals as some kind of benevolent group of people. There's something to honour. You know, it's a great British tradition. Well, no, they're not a great British tradition. They represent a fascist, hereditary dictatorship, basically. It would be like if North Korea suddenly got a democracy tomorrow, but they still kept Kim Jong-il and his family around just so they could have parades and go, oh, we love you, even though you're a fascist dickhead. They're a stain on Britain's history. They're not something to look up to and be patriotic about. They're the polar opposite to patriotism. If you love your country, you can't love a ruling class. If you love the people of the country, why would you support some, you know, uber rich dominant family that declares their right to rule from God? You know, I'd like to see that contract that God gave these people. They represent a bloody empire. Not too different from the New World Order empire today. It's just today we have politicians and men in suits that are on the visible thrones. It's more or less the same. This family is nothing to be proud of if you're a free human being, even if it is just ceremonial and for tradition. I mean, what do the people of Canada think when this old bag claiming to be their monarch, you know, goes over there once a year and says, oh hello, I'm your queen still? That's not a symbol of freedom and democracy. It's a symbol of well, it's a symbol of monarchy. It's a symbol of fascism, of elitism, of ruling classes. Imagine if you lived in Canada and you had this queen that just decides to pop over every now and then, just to remind them that she's still there. That's ridiculous. It's 2011. It wasn't long ago when the royals were known as the Saxe-Coburg Gothas, reflecting their true German heritage. They were obviously forced to change their name to the House of Windsor for PR purposes during World War One. But that doesn't stop the likes of Prince Philip, the Queen's husband, attending Nazi funerals, does it? Those photos only came out a couple of years ago. And Prince Philip just so happens to be into eugenics, just like Hitler himself. We all remember the famous quote that he wants to come back as a virus to reduce the world's population. And of course Prince Charles is steeped in the global warming scam, telling us peasants that we should take less baths. His great contribution to carbon reduction is converting his Aston Martin to run on wine. Yeah, the average person can't convert their cars to run on wine. And let's not forget, most of the time he's chauffeured around in a Rolls Royce anyway. It's not like they drive their own cars every day. And one dubious link that I brought up on the Roundtable show was Prince Philip and his ties to Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, a member of the SS. And Philip and Bernhard were partners in funding the World Wildlife Fund, which has often been exposed as a front for imperialist takeovers of the Third World. And of course Bernhard was also the founder of the Bilderberg Group, which Prince Charles himself would later attend. And what is the Bilderberg Group? Well, it's the clique of businesses and political and royal elitists that work together to push this Anglo-American, now, well, a Euro-American agenda. And some of their white papers admit to helping to create the EU, the very EU that the Queen of England signed us over to through the Lisbon Treaty. So don't be thinking that the royal family are innocent in the world's problems. They still have their fingers all in that pie, folks. At the very least, they're a very wealthy family. And when you're that wealthy, your money isn't always going to a good cause. And then of course we have the point about taxpayers having to fund the royals. Over 180 million a year. And there's many more millions on security that they don't even have to disclose. So it's 180 million that we know about. And think of how much security these people have. All the different events they attend, all the different people they entertain. So a lot more than 180 million that we pay them. This great wedding we're all attending, this feel-good moment for the country, to help us look beyond the recession, is actually costing the taxpayer 20 million. So it's adding to the national debt. And of course a common argument is that, oh, but the royals make us money. Well, the Crown Estate, which is the portfolio of properties and things that the Queen has title to, who's to say that they get all those when we kick them out? You know? We could still be making that money with or without them. We could sell them, we could do all sorts with these properties. They can make us even more money if we boot them out and open them up as museums. Yeah, they like to talk about the royals are good for tourism, but they'd be even better if they weren't there, because then we could have all the palaces and all these great buildings opened up completely to the public to walk through and have tours and display all the old crap that people like to look at. So it'd be better if they were gone. I mean, I don't know about you, but when people go to London, it's not that they're going to see Buckingham Palace or whatever. You know, it might be an added bonus, but most people go to London for shopping or to see a show or whatever, a big sporting event. The royal aspect of it is normally something afterwards, you know, like an added bonus. It's not the sole reason why people go. And the revenue that is made from these royal residences, they actually make up less than 1% of tourism anyway. The most successful is the Tower of London and Windsor Castle, because, as I say, they're fully open to the public. So there isn't really any argument for keeping them. They cost us lots of money. We could make more money if they weren't there. They don't represent patriotism at all, if anyone stops and thinks for a second about what they actually represent. There's no argument there. And something that just goes to show the type of people the royals are really, we'll go to resistradio.com. Outrage at dictators invited to the royal wedding. Peter Tatchell has accused the Queen of putting royalty before human rights as dictators prepare to join celebrities at this week's royal wedding. Among the guests who will hear Prince William and his fiancée exchange their wedding vows is the Crown Prince of Bahrain, whose Gulf state has violently suppressed democracy protests in recent months. You know, if these kinetic military actions in places like Libya were really about preventing human rights violations, then we should really be invading Bahrain, shouldn't we? But no, instead, the Prince of Bahrain is joining us Brits for a good patriotic day out. How ridiculous. So I hope we can raise some of these points on Friday with members of the public who, quite honestly, might not be aware. And I mean, if they are aware, I'd have to ask the question, what the hell are you doing here? And as we said on the roundtable, we're going to keep it polite. We're going to inject some humour in there to expose the absurdity of royal worship. I think I might try and talk to a few stray policemen, ask them about the stop and search measures, because I find it ironic that our freedom is taken away by the very symbol of feudalism, and we're supposed to be living in a democracy. So hopefully I can go and ask some police about the irony in that we're supposed to be this free democratic country, and we condemn foreign leaders for quelling protests and violent police and taking people's freedoms away, but on the day that the royals get married, we have no freedoms. And another funny article that will make the David Icke fans, well, I don't know what it will make them happy, but the royal wedding, William and Kate may honeymoon in the Great Barrier Reef. Prince William and Catherine Middleton could well head down under to honeymoon after their wedding day on Friday in London. The royal couple would follow in Prince Charles's footsteps if, as predicted, they visited Lizard Island on the Great Barrier Reef. So the reptile royal family are going to be attending Lizard Island, and of course the royal wedding's on David Icke's birthday. I wonder if we should try and capture them shape-shifting as they go past. I hear if you bleed near them, they quickly turn into lizards. So maybe if You know, we cut our fingers and run in front of the royal carriage. They'll turn into lizards and everyone will know the truth. Here's another article that, you know, it can make you angry and it can also make you laugh at the same time. But, time's going pretty quick. Americans would not accept security measures needed for royal wedding if it was held in the US. Americans would not accept many of the security measures being taken in London for the royal wedding if it was held in the US, say security experts. Random stop and searches and restrictions on use of iPhones, which are being used in England for the wedding of Prince William to Kate Middleton, would never fly in the US, according to CIA and NYPD officers. Now get this next line, this is hilarious. There's a more mature acceptance in the UK of the trade-off between civil liberties and security. That is so ridiculous. You can tell that it's deliberately crafted. It's flattery. They're trying to flatter the slaves into thinking that slavery is a good thing because they're more mature about it. Have a gold star, you slaves. Well done for being mature about your slavery. And the very idea that you know, America is any different than England in itself is stupid. We're both verging on police states. America tends to have more violent police during the average day-to-day policing, whereas we have more Orwellian cameras and databasing and all that kind of thing. I mean, it could be argued that it's just as bad anyway, but just this whole article is just ridiculous. And it's written by the Daily Mail royal correspondent. It doesn't even say their name. It's like a paragraph long. They just throw out all this crap repeatedly to hype people up for their wedding. But I wonder how many people who are attending are feeling all mature because they understand the trade-off that we must have for our civil liberties to keep the Queen and the royals safe. Ridiculous. And I think we've got a few minutes, so I think I'll just pull up the article regarding this MI5 or MI6 rather asset that came out today. WikiLeaks Al-Qaeda bomber worked for Britain. According to new files from WikiLeaks, an Al-Qaeda terrorist was working for British intelligence while carrying out attacks in the Middle East. Abdel Hadi al-Jaziri bin Hamili, I butchered that one, an Algerian-born extremist who funded international terrorism, assassinated defectors for Al-Qaeda and is accused of blowing up Christian churches, was on the payroll of MI6 during some of his crimes. The files are derived from detainee reports leaked from torture site Guantanamo Bay. They also document how the phone number for BBC's World Service was found in the possession of several terrorist suspects, leading the US to believe that the news outlet was a possible propaganda media network for Al-Qaeda. The role of hook-handed Abu Hamza as a radicalizer and recruiter on British soil was reiterated as dozens of inmates were traced back to the Finsbury Park Mosque where Abu Hamza was preaching. He was allowed to send British-based Muslims to camps in Pakistan and Afghanistan until a crackdown after the 7/7 attacks. Bin Hamili had also been working for Canada's Secret Intelligence Service. See, they're all in on it together, folks. A footnote reads, detainee was recruited as a human intelligence source. He was transferred to Algeria in 2010, but his whereabouts are now unknown. There is a long history of Muslim terrorists working for or being manipulated by US, British and other intelligence services. This should come as no surprise to students of history. It should also be noted that any heat between Britain and US over these files is superficial. It was only a few months ago that the US released a trainer of the 7-7 bombers years early because he was really a US intelligence asset. So just another bit of evidence we can throw on the stack there of the intelligence agencies being up to no good, really. But I think that pretty much wraps it up today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show. It did kind of seem to go a bit quick. But for further headlines and news, I try and update it daily. Please visit WideShut.co.uk. Also visit resistradio.com, which Brit now updates daily with important news articles. And of course the forums where some of the hosts put their links to their sources of the topics they're talking about. Cookie should be up next in half an hour with his rabbit hole orientation show. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. You are the resistance. That's not just a snazzy phrase. If you're not resisting, then there is no resistance. It's just me shouting through a megaphone, travelling through some fibre optic somewhere, and it's meaningless unless people are actually resisting on the other end. Those of you going to the royal wedding, I know there's a couple of listeners that are probably looking to meet us at Trafalgar Square. I'll email you details on that. We'll see you there. Everyone else, catch you possibly on Friday evening afterwards, or at least obviously the next Tuesday, and I'll update everyone of the day. But until then, have a good night and keep resisting.